that dare not speak its name. If you go into Starbucks, you'll see three sizes of drinks: the tall, the grande, the venti. You can also get a short. Now the short is, of course, smaller than the tall, and it's cheaper. And the reason they don't advertise the existence of this cheaper drink is because they don't want to make it too easy to get that bargain. If you really want the cheaper deal, if you really know what you're doing, you can pay less.
Starbucks, of course, gives a slightly different reason for the absence of the short on the menu.
There are literally thousands of combinations of our drinks. You can have it tall, grande, skinny, with something, without something. We want to make sure that it's your drink. You want to have it in the way that you want to have it. There's just, frankly, not enough room to put every combination up on a menu board behind.
So why do the coffee shops have thousands of combinations? The answer is that a wide choice of products makes good business sense.
Wouldn't it be brilliant, from the point of view of the cafe, if there was a way to charge more to people who didn't mind paying more, and to charge less to people who absolutely demanded the best possible deal? And it turns out there is a way to do this. You just offer this menu of choices where any customer who isn't price sensitive can order a sprinkling of marshmallows and a fancier combination and maybe an extra shot of espresso and an extra bit of syrup. And these things really don't cost a lot to provide. The margins on them are absolutely fantastic.
So how does it work? Well, remember the margin on a regular cappuccino? It was a decent 35p profit. Look what happens if you supersize your order. Say to a large cafe latte with a flavour and an extra topping. Now the raw materials cost a bit more at about 30p. The packaging and the fixed costs are roughly the same, and VAT has gone up to about 65p. So the costs have gone up a bit, but the price tag has soared to around £3.30, almost trebling the profit on each cup. Given all this coffee-powered cash flying around, you could be forgiven for thinking that setting up a coffee shop chain would be a license to print money. But you'd be wrong. As the noughties dawned, coffee drinking seemed to be deeply entrenched in the British lifestyle.
I got very excited back in 2003 when I saw the latte had become part of the consumer price index. And for me, that was a sign that this market was really here, that this branded coffee product was part of British lifestyle.
Despite this, none of the brands was turning a profit, because coffee shops only make money if they can control the fixed costs, like their rents. One company in particular was struggling. Coffee Republic had been the brainchild of brother and sister team Bobby and Sahar Hashemi. They had grown their business quickly since 1995, taking on locations with astronomical rents where footfall would be high. But their brand was not strong enough to pull in the punters.
They were a brand that was wanting to be a Starbucks, but they didn't have the same brand pull of Starbucks. They didn't have the financial covenants, they didn't have the financial clout of Starbucks. So they're going head to head with Starbucks on the same premises and actually perhaps a bit of hubris, paying above and beyond what they should have paid.
Rents matter because a third of us are more likely to choose a coffee bar based on its convenience than any other factor, meaning landlords can charge a fortune for prime sites.
In the land grab, we ended up acquiring sites that, because of the competition or because of the high rents, have not been profitable for us.
Coffee Republic was eventually forced into administration. Bobby Hashemi stepped down, and today the company is a fraction of the size it once was. The UK coffee market had boiled down to three big brands. Starbucks out in front, with Costa and Nero bringing up the rear. But the landscape was about to change.
In the mid-2000s, Costa was a mediocre brand. It was a brand that was a bit of a lost. It was stuck in the middle, really. It was in no man's land. It didn't have the coffee credentials of Caffè Nero. It didn't have the sort of sexy brand image of Starbucks. The arrival of a new management team in 2007 was actually a pivotal moment in Costa's development. It really was the moment that they put the foot on the accelerator.
One of the new managers who put his pedal to the floor was marketing whiz Jim Slater. In 2008, he hatched a plan that would hit Starbucks where it would hurt.
There was a general perception amongst the public that all coffee was the same, and it clearly isn't. So we commissioned a blind taste test, and the results were stunning.
It was a robust and well-certified study, and from that we felt confident enough to put advertising out that said 7 out of 10 coffee lovers prefer Costa.
When the ad campaign was first launched, Howard Schultz seemed undaunted.
We serve about 2 million customers a week here in the UK. We are the leader, and we will maintain our leadership position.
But Costa's adverts had gone for Starbucks' jugular.
We wanted to be fairly blatant, and lines like, "Sorry Starbucks, the people have voted," were quite hard-hitting at the time, and they proved very effective.
Starbucks was unnerved and complained to the Advertising Standards Authority.
We thought they would complain, and that's why we had to make absolutely sure that the research was totally robust, perfectly legal, and would stand to any kind of challenge.
The ASA upheld Costa's claims despite Starbucks' contention that the blind test only used cappuccinos and that the test did not prove that Starbucks customers preferred Costa's coffee.
There was some level of challenge around, the accuracy of it, but that was all upheld and was found to be true. And I guess beyond that, we should probably ask Starbucks.
They're very entitled to say what they say. And actually, that's fine, because we've got to concentrate on what we do. We've got to concentrate on our customers and making our business the best it can be.
I don't think Starbucks are at all frightened of us. We're a microscopic blip on their proverbial posterior.
Just get a large latte still. Yeah, no worries.
As Starbucks and Costa Coffee were very publicly slugging it out for the #1 spot in British coffee, their smaller and lower-profile cousin, Caffè Nero, was quietly building up a sizable empire of its own.
We didn't look at Costa or Starbucks and try to mimic them at all, or do anything similar. And for better or for worse, we kind of marched to our own drum.
Jerry Ford launched Nero in London, but the stores are based on an Italian model.
Caffè Nero feels more like an authentic experience, it feels more like a specialist. And that clearly spills into its food because it has a more specialised offer. It feels more like a quality premium food offer.
Food is important because coffee shops only really prosper if they can entice us to spend more by offering us mouth-watering goodies.
In the early days, food was relatively uninspiring in coffee shops. It was perhaps a dry, stale muffin or a piece of toast. If you're very lucky, you might have got a croissant. So it was very simple, very basic. Today's coffee shops have really increased their food offer.
The driving force is the core product of coffee and the craftsmanship and the quality that goes into that. But the food sort of complements that. We have 30% of our sales are in food, which is higher than either of the two other major brands and higher than most local independents.
At Caffè Nero on Peter Street in Manchester, the staff know lunchtime is always busy.
As it comes up to lunchtime, we tend to get ready for the rush, make sure everything's full, stocked, make sure all tables are clear, so there's places for the customers to sit.
Back at HQ in London, Caffè Nero's Italian food consultant Ursula Ferrigno is holding a tasting session to give staff a real flavour of Italy. Ursula is employed by Caffè Nero to try to put that sought-after Italian stamp on its food.
The customer is becoming more and more discerning. I feel it's very important that they can walk into a Caffè Nero and think, I'm getting exceptional food, and it's just like Italy. I'd like to come in with very ambitious range of food. Some of my ideas need to be tweaked, but they're all authentic, exploring new foods, new ideas.
Once Ursula's ambitions have been sufficiently tweaked, the challenge is to make sure they will work in the stores.
We do a lot of testing and trialling. It's important that we've applied sufficient rigour to the process. So we test it both within our own food team, within the wider Caffè Nero team, and with customers. If we have confidence in a product, we'll just say, you know, this is great, we love it, we think our customers will love it, and we put it out there.
Purists, though, might not regard every item as being in line with Ursula's quest for the authentic Italian experience.
Tell me about muffins.
We had a big debate about it. Do we serve that, which is slightly an American type of product? We don't have a lot of those, but if we're going to do some of them, we want to do them better than anybody else.
By the late noughties, the British coffee shops were all serving us decent food, decent coffee, and most of them were making decent money. But then the economy hit a bump in the road. Across the country, shops began closing down. Household budgets were squeezed. Belts were tightened. But UK consumers were not about to give up on their daily dose of coffee.
On the one hand, it's quite a luxury to spend £2.50 on a cup of coffee when you could make a cup of instant coffee at home. You don't need to spend that money. On the other hand, it's an affordable luxury.
I'm not remotely surprised that people kept drinking coffee through the recession, and I certainly did. And it did seem like a even more precious pleasure at that point.
In fact, the recession was a boon to coffee shops. Property prices and rents plummeted, allowing the brands to snap up new locations at bargain prices. Costa put on an impressive growth spurt, adding hundreds of sites in 2009 and 2010. By the end of the decade, Costa had achieved what might once have seemed impossible. For the first time in the UK, it had more stores, more customers, and higher takings than its giant rival, Starbucks. Although Costa don't like to overplay the achievement.
Yes, internally it was very exciting, and obviously we were happy to have done it, but ultimately you still have to stay focused on getting it right for the customer, and I think that's the driver. It wasn't about overtaking our competition.
Whether the race was important or not, Costa's expansion into the regions was proving to be a winning strategy. But opening stores in small towns is not always popular, as Costa discovered when it set its sights on a small shop in the Devon town of Totnes.
We'd found what we thought was a great location for us, and we, set about our usual plans around opening, and then understood that there was some strong local feeling about us coming.
In this seemingly peaceful market town, Costa's plans had stirred up a hornet's nest. One of the local businessmen who declared war on Costa was independent cafe owner Martin Turner.
We're a town of only about 8,000 to 9,000 people, and we have 3 or 4 independent butchers. There's a similar sort of amount of veg shops. There's many cafes here.